Okay, and so with that being said, now I'm in the business for 34 years of teaching people how to get in shape. 4.5 days ago, I found myself in Kuwait at the hospital after having my 3rd stroke, paralyzed, which was astonishing to me. It blew my mind. You know, how could my first thought was, how in the world could well, I didn't even know that I was having that to begin with, but how could someone who's been in the industry as long as I have, you know, have this happen to me? I was just absolutely floored by this, you know, by what happened. But then, what I learned was shocking, and this is the reason why now what I do is I go on the road and I speak to a lot of people about this kind of stuff. Because what my doctor told me as I was lying there, he said, you know, you've had these, because I had 2 strokes 2 weeks prior to my 3rd one. I had these 2. I was at the gym training people, and then all of a sudden I was leaning on a bench. I was leaning on a bench like this, and all of a sudden I went to put my foot down and I couldn't find the floor. That's weird. And then all of a sudden, then it was like a domino effect. I lost function in my hand, and then my speech. I mean, it was so odd when you find yourself just losing function like that. But even then, I didn't think, I mean, that was the furthest thing from my mind was that was happening to me, you know. And anyway, so fortunately, when that happened, my wife got me, I drove home. I'm stubborn that way, you know. I'm at my Isaiah store at the time. I had 2 gyms going. And I decided, I kind of stood around at the gym after this happened to me, because I thought, I know there's something going on, but maybe it's, I don't know, it's going to go away. And it didn't, so I drove home, which I shouldn't have. I barely made it home. Well, they got me to the hospital in time, within 4 hours. If something like this occurs to you, it's really important to get to the doctor or the hospital within 4 hours, because the doctor at that point said, you can, and I'm paralyzed, mind you, when I was there, and he said, and this is a hell of a decision to make when you're not in that state, but the doctor said, well, there's it's kind of a controversial medication that we can give you. It's an IV. It's called TPA. It's a long word for clot busting medicine. And what they do, they hook it up to on your arm. And the doctor said, if it works, and he says in 2.5 days you're going to walk out of here like nothing ever happened. If it doesn't work, you could die. Those are my, you know, here I am, and my kid's there, and I had to tell my kid, sign the paper, because I didn't want to be like that at that point, you know? I wish I would, now, and this is part of the reason why I go out here and talk, because as much as we don't want to deal with something like that, you know, when you're in a situation like that, hey Paul, how you doing? When you're in a situation like that, now I wish I would have been just a little more ready. But it's how do you get ready for that? How do you tell people that this could happen to you? So anyway, I took the chance. And amazingly, 2.5 days, just like the doctor told me, I walked out of that hospital. I went on a Thursday, the first time. I had my first 2 back-to-back. And 2.5 days, I walked out of that hospital. Sunday morning, I left, like nothing ever happened. That was the good and bad news, because here I am, an athlete, bodybuilder. The doctor tells me, I'm glad you're there. He says, you're here, but you shouldn't be here, because all your testing that we've done, they did MRI, they did all the ultrasound, my heart, everything was good. And yet here I was. Well, the doctor told me, he goes, I highly recommend that you don't do any, at that time I had decided to come back after a 13-year layoff to compete in the old man's bodybuilding competitions. So I was in the middle of that too, right? And he said, I highly don't recommend that you do that. And on top of that, I suggest that you take 4 to 6 weeks off. Well, hell, I thought he was talking to somebody else. I'm thinking he must be talking to somebody who's just average or never worked out. Not a bodybuilder, not somebody who's been in training for 30 years. I said, I nodded my head, you know. I left, and in my mind, I thought, you know, I'm just going to go back. I'm going to modify what I'm doing, cut my hours down, go back into the gym, lightweight training, no bodybuilding. I wasn't going to do that. Just go back in, because in my head, I needed to get back to normal, some form of normalcy, because this is shocking to me. So I did. I went back. I was off a week, and I said, I'm going to go back. I used my own rationale. I'm going to go back. I cut my workouts way back. Everything was going okay. I was doing fine. 3 weeks to the day. Now I knew what was going on. I'm training a client of mine. And I told him, I said, hey, I'm having another stroke. I can feel it coming on again. Now I knew the signs. Once again, now I'm in Tulare, at my gym here in Tulare. Drive to Visalia, having this thing. Pulled up into the emergency, walked in, knocked on the window. She knew who I was because I had just been there. So I'm having my third one right now. Took me in the back, within minutes, done. Same exact thing happened to me. I was sitting down filling out information, believe it or not, at the emergency, having a stroke. And by the time I stood up, crashed to the ground. Now, here's the bad news for me. The very same thing happened. I was paralyzed all on one side again. It affected my speech, hand, everything. And the doctor said, well, this time you can't have that TPA, that clot busting medicine, because they can't give it to you, like they can only give it to you once every 3 months. So I had to do this thing from scratch. It was like starting all over again. And so that's where, I was at a crossroads, big time. So what I did, and having the sport, bodybuilding saved my life. And I'll tell you something, bodybuilding, because it's so extreme on every level, it had something to do with why I went down. My body just shut me down, and it does that to you. When you push your body too far with stress, your body starts shutting you down. In athletics, when we're training, the way your body tells you that you're pushing it a little bit too far is you'll start having like muscle pulls, just little things like that. Your body is alerting you. It's pretty smart that way. It's just that we get into this place of denial and we try to well, I'm just going to be tougher than this, And you got to be aware of that kind of stuff, And it's a real hard thing when you're competitive. It's a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing to control, But bodybuilding. But yet the sport itself, because as a bodybuilder, I know exactly what to do when it comes to training muscle, body parts, every single one of them. Because when we're up on stage, we have to know how to control every single muscle and make it look easy and smile and all that good stuff. And so we know from training, we know how to do that. So what I did is as a bodybuilder, we're very inquisitive. We're always looking how to push the envelope to get muscle to grow or to make it perform better. Because I train athletes. I train professional athletes to help them excel in the field. So what I did is I just put my background into use. My doctor prescribed a physical therapy for me, and amazingly, and we'll talk about that more. Amazingly, it took about 3 weeks before I could get that consultation with a physical therapist. And I went to one physical therapy consultation and I never went back again. Because, first of all, I was confident, arrogant, whatever you want to call it, enough that I thought that I could rehabilitate myself. The physical therapist, what I got from them, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with physical therapy, because if I didn't have my sport in the background, I wouldn't have done this, honestly. But being at the level I was as a competitor, I had a whole different mindset than my physical therapist did. I got the impression, because they laid out a plan for me, that they wanted to get me back to functional. And functional is just not good enough for me. That's just not, that was not good enough for me. So I didn't go back. I mean, it was controversial. I took a lot of heat from my wife, But I said, I'm not going to do that, because my mindset is to get back to 100% recovery. Not functional, And the thing is, at that point, you don't know what your recovery is going to be. You just don't know that. But to me, that didn't matter. To me, it was about being paralyzed at that point, but reaching for a 100% recovery. That was my deal. That was a distinction right there. So that's what I did. I stayed at home. Now I paid attention to what the doctor said. He told me to go home and rest 4 to 6 weeks. You better believe I did. I stayed home. And I not only stayed home for that reason, I stayed home because I was humiliated. You know, I was embarrassed to a degree because, like I said, you know, I'm in the business of telling people how to get in shape and be healthy, and here I am. But the doctor told me this, and this is kind of one of the messages that I'm sending out to people. He told me this. He said, look, you know, having 3 strokes like this, you probably shouldn't have, not many people survive that, having that many back-to-back like that. And he says, and you did. But he said, Leo, he says, believe it or not, 40% of the people that have strokes, this is a doctor telling me this, and I heard from more than one. He said they exercise. They appear to be in shape. So wake-up call. You know, it was like, okay, we don't get a pass, even if we think that we're healthy, and I'll tell you why. Because there are risk factors, and this is what I tied into. We have risk factors. They include anything from age, which you can't do anything about, unless you guys have figured out how to get younger. I haven't. You're going to get older. That doesn't change. You can't control that part of it. Heritage, in your genes, there's some of that. Okay, people make more of genetics than they need to, but that's still a factor. Being overweight, okay, too much smoking, drinking, that kind of stuff. Those are all risk factors, because what that does is that leads into high blood pressure, which is the #1 reason that people have strokes. The #1 reason. And yet you have all these other risk factors. I was in that category because here I am. I'm training and all that. But at that point in my life, I was in a very stressful, I was competing. When you compete at the level, I was at the world level. In this case, I was competing nationally. When you compete like that, you're all in. It's very extreme. Okay, so I had that I was training for. Then I'm running 2 businesses at that time. So I'm like in a spot there where I'm not sleeping very much, it's high stress. Well, the stress is what took me down, but I also had, at that point, when I'm training for the sport, we get in what's called an off-season shape. I was heavier. I was at 300 pounds. But I was in shape, but I was still carrying all that weight on the body. It's a liability. And we knew that as a bodybuilder. I knew there was some trade-offs to what I was doing. That's just the way it is. But the #1 thing is high blood pressure, chronic high blood pressure. And so I tell my people as I'm speaking to them on the road now is make sure that you know your numbers. Make sure that you know your numbers. A perfect, what's considered ideal is now 120 over 80. 120 is the top number. 80 is they call it the bottom number. 80 is it's a diastolic. Okay, that is when your heart dilates. They're measuring the pressure in your heart to see what that pressure is. Okay, that's the most important one of the 2. Then you have systolic, top number. That one's important. That one is when your heart contracts. It measures the pressure in your heart. So those are your numbers. Now it's very important to know that. Now you got to realize that those numbers, that number is going to fluctuate, because when you're getting upset or you're stressed out, your blood pressure doesn't just stay even, but it's when you start getting that bottom number, when you start seeing that number getting up to 85 to 89, okay, you're hypertensive. Right there is already the little flag that goes up. The top number, if it gets up, if it goes up to, like I said, it's 120 over 80. If the 120 gets up into the 135, 150 range, again, that's hypertensive. So you got to really be aware of that. You cannot ignore that thing, because that's going to get you, especially the bottom number, okay? So I started learning about risk factors. I made sure that I went out and that I monitored that. So what I did, the first thing I did while I was at home, is I changed the way I was eating. I wasn't eating bad, but I just changed the way I was eating. And basically, I changed my diet to what's called a paleo diet. Have you guys heard of that? It's a caveman diet. Have you heard of that? So, okay, yeah, that's good. Basically, it's whatever you can pick, pull, or kill. Fruits, vegetables, meat. That's called a paleo diet, caveman. That's what they eat. Very healthy diet, because it's anti-inflammation. And when your body's inflamed, And see, these are all things that start adding to blood pressure raising. That causes part of the problem. So what I did is I made some changes. I went ahead and changed my diet to this paleo diet. And then I dropped, at that point when I had my strokes, because I was competing, getting ready for a show. I think it was about 2 months out from this show. I was at 250, pretty good shape, man, by then. I mean, I'm close to this, being up on stage. So I dropped about 50 pounds, 40 some pounds. And I've been at this weight now, ever since this happened. I'm at 207, so whatever that is. And I've been at this weight now for quite some time, you know. So I started managing my risk factors. I started managing what kind of things I let bother me. You know something, your body, listen, I'm still in business. I am still working in a stressful environment, but I handle it differently. That's a very big key. And I think one of the best ways that I handle it now is I compartmentalize things, you know? It's like, if I got something that I want to get upset about, I get upset about it. But I put it in a box and put it away. I'm not obsessed with it throughout the whole day. Because that's like in training, when we're training as an athlete, if you're constantly training and you're not letting your body recover, then that's when your body goes into overtraining. And that's when your body starts shutting down. And that's when athletes start pulling muscles. That's a warning sign. So it's just another way to deal and learn how to deal with the risk factors, because they're going to be there. You just got to know how to deal with them. Okay, so that I'm kind of making a point of that, because we're all out here living life and we're all under stress, and there's ways that you can control that. It's just a way to be preventative. That's all. So when I'm home, and this is an odd occurrence. When I was home laying in bed, I just come home from my third stroke, and I'm laying in bed, and I woke up one morning, and this is very odd. I didn't know where my limbs were in space. I'm laying here like this. I had no clue where my arm was, my foot. It's such an odd feeling to be in that situation. We don't realize how our body is hooking. Oops, I'm trying to do this already. How our body is hooking itself up when we're young kids, our babies. We're being connected and we don't even know it. And our body is connecting. All these movements that we do, it's done automatically for us. And as an athlete, a bodybuilder, it was blind faith. They said, connect the mind to the muscle when you're training, when you're exercising, because that's really the difference between really making progress. And it doesn't have to be just bodybuilding. It could be just for fitness. It's about being efficient. It was about connecting the mind to the muscle. Well, as a bodybuilder, we just said, yeah, I believe that. We didn't even really know if it was true. It didn't matter. But I learned that at the ground level when this happened to me. Because here I am, disconnected, didn't know where my limbs were. And so I just said, I'm going to go ahead and implement the things I know about my sport, and that's how I'm going to see if I can get myself back. So my wife would help me out to the living room, and I'd sit there in my little on my bench, and I'd have her come over next to me, and I said, what I want you to do is because I couldn't move my arm. I said, I want you to go ahead and just grab my hand, and I'm going to watch it. And I want you to do, we're going to do a curl like this. I couldn't do it. She did it for me. All I did was watch it. And the way the physiology works is your body works in 21-day cycles. What that means is that if you do something for 21 days in a row, that's called a routine, then your body, by its own nature, is going to try to adapt. Your body is always trying to adapt to its environment. That's part of your autonomic nervous system. That's a coping mechanism that's built into all of us. Again, it's like an auto. It's taking care of us all the time to adapt. You guys and all of us are adapting. Your body's always adapting to its environment, so you can deal with this stuff, right? Okay, same thing. So I just told my wife, I said, okay, now just go ahead and move my hand. And all I did for 3 weeks, for 21 days, because my arm was what was the most impaired. And so for 21 days, we would go out to the front room, and she would raise my arm, and I would just watch it. All I was thinking, connect the mind to the muscle. I'm going to tell you something. Here's what started happening. I know it sounds odd, and if I was sitting over there, I might not believe me. But here's what was going on. As I went along, as like at about the 2-week mark, 2.5-week mark, it was all of a sudden like I had like this, I could almost feel like a current going down to my arm, from my brain to my arm. But it was like a delay. You know how, I don't know if you guys ever called Europe, back in the old days, you were talking, there'd be a delay before the person could hear you. It was kind of like that. And then 3 weeks, almost 3 weeks to the day, I woke up and I knew, you know how like when you know something, just know it in your gut. I knew that I was going to be able to move my arm. I sat down with my wife. I went through the whole routine same way. I just said, I don't want you to do this for me today. Amazingly, that's when it happened. All of a sudden I could move my arm. At that point, I knew I had a chance because my body was responding the way it's supposed to. It's normal. I knew I had a chance. And from that day forward, then I just started incorporating all the things I learned in my sport. And so it was baby steps. This thing, when you're trying to overcome a stroke, it's a nightmare, let me tell you, because it beats you down every single day. Karen and I have been on the road, you know, after this happened to me, then I went on the road because I wanted to see why only 10% of the people who have strokes like I did recover, fully recover. Almost fully recover. That means that 90% of the people that are having these live for the rest of their life with a lifelong impairment. And I got myself back. I mean, you know, I could be the exception to the rule, but I didn't think so. And I kind of proved that, we're proving that now because I have people coming in to my facility that have had strokes. I had a guy that just recently was in a chair he'd been in a chair for 4 years. And he went through his physical therapy and all this kind of stuff, and then he came to me because they heard about me through some other source, and he was walking limited with a cane. I mean, it's brutal. This guy's bad. And inside, just cut to this chase, inside of 4 weeks, he's now walking 100 feet because I take a different approach to this thing. We came in that wheelchair, and I said, we're going to walk today. He looked at me like I was, you know, he goes, my cane. No. We have 3 people around him, spotting him, and we said, see, my philosophy was I wanted to do the things I did before this happened, and not anything less than that. See the difference in the mindset? And I did that same thing with Jim, is his name. And we got him up out of his chair, you know, no cane. We spotted him. I put him in a spot where he felt safe. And he took off and he started walking. And I'm going to tell you right now, inside of 4 weeks, he has walked 100 feet. And I don't know how much I can do with him because time is of the essence. And this is what I was talking about back when I said it took me 3 weeks to get an appointment with my physical therapist. Time is critical. Nobody thought that someone like me could keep. I'm still recovering. Most people can't tell, unless I point it out. You probably can't tell. I'm still recovering because the way your body recovers, it recovers from the inside, out, and down. The last thing that happens is your fine motor movements in your hands, real fine stuff, right? And well, until the 1960s, and astonishingly, and still today, some doctors are actually telling their stroke victims, because this is what I learned when we went on the road talking to people. Some doctors are still telling their people after 6 or 8 months, that's about all you're going to get out of your recovery. I'm 4.5 years. I'm still recovering. And I'll tell you what, I started my rehab right away. Right away. Getting that body. You heard the expression, if you don't use it, you're going to lose it? Okay, same thing. Your body is kind of like that. If you don't teach it what you want it to do, it's not going to do it. That's the reason why, like, this is how smart your body is. When you put a cast on your arm, within 3 weeks, all of a sudden, there's atrophy in the arm. That's by design. Your physiology recognizes that it doesn't need to put energy there. So if you don't use it, it's not moving because it's in a cast. It shrinks it. It doesn't have to put energy there anymore. Well, that's kind of the same principle here. With Jim, this guy stopped using his body. And his body just said, okay, we'll just adapt to your wheelchair. That's what it does. So that's, you know, well, I started finding out that, well, hey, wait a minute, there's a reason that people are not recovering like they should. They're being told the wrong information. I went to my cardiologist after I, you know, again, I'm fast forwarding all this stuff. I mean, I'm at my home and I did this process. I did all this recovery and everything was behind doors. And then I just started taking baby steps to get out in public. I was very self-conscious of this stuff, man. It was brutal. I hated that. So, again, I'm recovered now pretty well, not 100%. And I go to my doctor, my cardiologist, because I have to do this testing, see if I'm okay. And by the way, when I was in the hospital and they tested me, everything was fine, clear, arteries. When it happened to me. Because some people ask me, well, how's your sport? I'll be honest with you guys. I competed at a level where I had to make a choice. I didn't compete naturally. You can fill in the blanks. Because that was a choice I had to make to compete at that level. Okay? But some people say, well, it was that. You know, they caused that. And it wasn't. I'm not going to tell you that it didn't contribute to some degree, but the proof was in the pudding in that arteries clear, heart's fine, no liver damage. So it wasn't all that. That's just the truth. Some people don't like to hear that, the truth, but that's the truth. I'm not condoning it. I'm just telling you the truth. Okay, so I go to my cardiologist, and then he says, we're saying now, he goes, so you had 3 strokes, huh? In 3 weeks. He said, you're a miracle. And I said, well, you know, I really didn't think that. So he goes, here's what, he said, how did you do that? Okay, so what the hell is the doctor asking me how I did this? Especially after I told him. Because what I did was non-traditional compared to today's standards. Again, I'm not bagging on the industry. I'm just telling you what happened. What I did is when I was bringing myself back, bodybuilders are like this, we look for stuff, new stuff, to make the body work better. I went out and did non-traditional therapy. For example, I did IV therapy. I found a doctor out of Porterville, and I was going to him twice a week and doing IV injections, all amino acids, natural. It's like the foods that you eat are all amino acids. It's protein, but it's broken down into a solution. I was taking glutathione and alpha lipoic acid. Nothing more than natural stuff that you get out of your food, but it's now an IV. And I was doing that because what that did, those 2 amino acids, the glutathiones is considered the mother of all antioxidants. Antioxidants, you want to add antioxidant in your body because what it does, it attacks the free radicals, all the bad stuff that's in your body, heavy metals. And those are the things that create stress, create inflammation in the body. So that's what that does, okay? When you have a stroke, your body is totally inflamed. Mine hit here, okay? So my brain was inflamed. It was inflamed before it happened, but now it was worse. But the whole body becomes inflamed. So I knew that with that inflammation, I knew from my sport, because when we were training, it was being inflamed. Training is a stress to the body. It's a temporary stress. It's not much different than what happened to me with my strokes. So I just figured, logically, well, I got to get the inflammation out of my body. So I found this IV therapy. It's considered non-traditional. A lot of doctors are unaware that this is even going on as a treatment, and some just won't acknowledge it because it doesn't fit in their path of traditional and the traditional way that they treat you. So I did IV therapy. I did light therapy. I did it with sunglasses. There's a special, they call it ultralights. It's a special sunglass. It's like a colored, I used a bright yellow one. And it has like a strobe light in it on both sides. When you have a stroke on this side, it affects the right side of your body. So the strobe light that I had, it was a cadence. And it was in my eye. And what it would do is it would affect this side of my body. Again, the whole point of all this stuff was to keep hooking my brain back up again and getting the inflammation out of my body. So I did IV therapy, I did light therapy, music therapy. There's certain music that you can listen to that'll reduce in your head. It can put you back into that, again, inflammation so you can recover. was light therapy, IV therapy, music therapy, oxygen therapy. I was hooking myself up to oxygen. And, you know, our body is oxygen. So I just kept pumping new oxygen, new blood. So my doctor's asking me, how in the hell did you get back to this recovery? And I'm thinking, what's wrong with it? And I told him what I did, and it's like I was talking a foreign language to him. You know? So I'm thinking, okay, wait a minute. What the hell's wrong with this picture? I'm coming to my doctor, and he's asking me? Uh-oh. This is when the lights started going off. And that's when we decided to go on the road. Let's go find some stuff out. We're at fact-finding. And unbelievably, we started hearing the same kind of accounts from these other people. Oh, it gets worse than that. So not only are the doctors not giving necessarily, I'm not saying all of them, but a lot of them are not just giving the right information, like after 6 or 8 months, not knowing these other therapies that are out there. If anything less than traditional, they really don't. Some do, but most don't. But then it got worse than that, I thought, because then we started hearing stories of people. They said, well, I was in therapy, and then all of a sudden my insurance company cut me off. So what was happening, and this is that functional, we have a standard level of care in our country. And if you fall into that, whether you're 100% recovered or not, they say, you're done. Go to your doctor and have them write you a prescription, and then you go and do this on your own. So think about this. How in the world are you going to be able to do this on your own? Most of them, look, I was lucky because I had the sport in my background. I knew what to do. So you have people that don't know what to do. They don't get to their physical therapist in time to begin with, a lot of them, because we heard this. It took me a long time before I could get an appointment. Okay, that's killer right there, number one. Because we know that if you don't use the body, you start losing. Believe me, your body starts, I don't want to say deteriorating, but let's just say muscle-wise. If you stay still for 3 days, your body starts to atrophy. The atrophy process starts within, how many is that, 36 hours? 36 hours. It's so subtle that you don't know it. So here you are 3 weeks out after having a stroke before you see a doctor, okay? So we started hearing that. We started hearing, well, my insurance company, they kicked me loose, and then they left me up to my own devices. They said, now you go to your own gym, and then you finish recovery. Can't do that. I'm telling you right now. I got people that come into my facility that are perfectly healthy, and they can't do it. Only because they don't have all the information in the areas that you need. It's not rocket science. I'm not trying to say that either. So you have people that don't have the background to begin with, and then, if you're not willing to follow through with this, people come and see me, because all my stuff that I do is all supervised. They come see me because they know when they go try to do this on their own, after about a month, they start falling off the wagon and they start becoming less consistent. That's why they come see me, because my thing is all about accountability. So now you have a person that's jacked up, and we saw them, and they say, go ahead and now you go figure this thing out. Okay, so now you've got, doctors not necessarily communicating. You've got insurance companies that are kicking people out before they're good, they're recovered, because I'm proof that you can recover more. You can recover all the way. I'm still recovering after 4.5 years, and there's no end in sight. I'm still recovering. I'm still making progress. And then you add into that equation, big pharma. I really got the feeling, and again, it's my observation. It's just an observation, but I got the feeling that when my doctor and these doctors were saying that, how are you doing this? They really are practicing medicine in a certain pathway. And I'm just making my own conclusion that pathway, if you go far enough, you're going to find big pharma out there too. They're all connected. And that's okay. But I'm telling the doctors, at least acknowledge what else is out there. Why is it that $34 billion a year in America is being spent on this lifelong disease? Why? If you told me that, Leo, it's something you've gone as far as you can, if that was really the truth, well then okay, all right. But when you can still recover, and I'm showing that, and I'm showing that to the people I'm working with, well, then why is it that we're spending? Now I'm starting to get suspicious. Maybe maybe they don't want the cure. I'm just saying. It just seems that way. And so that's kind of that's kind of where we're at right now. This is sort of the new calling now for me, is to go out and be listen, until you see people that we've seen in our walk and our travels. It's sad, it's scary, and you don't want to be there, that's for sure. And that's why I'm so hell-bent on not just getting the message out. I think that stroke people in the industry are underserved. That's what I feel. So what I've done is to counteract that, I want to be the voice of the underserved for them. My whole thing before was my gym is still something I do every day. We got a good clientele. That's not where I want to be now. I do, but I have people that are doing that in my facility, and they do a really good job. But my calling is now, I feel like this is a bigger calling, because I feel that people are getting screwed around. And I know that it is something that's going to be an uphill battle. It's like fighting City Hall. There's too much money involved. I know that. I'm not blind to this fact. But that doesn't really matter. As a bodybuilder, they tell you that's how can you get that big, and how can you perform that well as an athlete. But we do. We defy the odds. So that's kind of the mindset. I'm just taking the very same mindset that I have for most of my life. So that's what we're doing now, is we're getting out here and we're talking to people like you, okay? And just creating awareness, if nothing else. And a place where maybe you can ask questions. But the whole thing is just to get everybody on the same page. And what we're doing is, I've creating as we speak, a foundation. It's a nonprofit foundation. We call it VIFTA, VFTU, Voice for the Underserved Foundation. And we're going to be putting on a big event sometime in the spring. That's our game plan. And the whole point of that is to create a fund for people that have these strokes that have been kicked out of the system. And we're going to say, I don't know how this all works yet. We're still learning about this. But the idea is to, if you've had a stroke and your insurance company has kicked you out of the system, then you have a place now that's going to give you some money to go hire a physical therapist or hire somebody that knows, how to do this to get you better, because you deserve that. I mean, you still have a chance, so why not? So that's what we're doing. We're developing that, and we're going up again. I'm just, going up and down the road like this and getting the message and the word out to create that. But ultimately, listen, the thing that's been fantastic, sometimes you don't know, like if something that happens to you that's bad is good or not. And I will tell you, I would never wish a stroke on anybody. I wouldn't. But since all this has happened to me, again, as I said, it's put me on this new mission, calling, if you will. When I was recovering, I was writing a journal, the things that I was doing, documenting how I was feeling, just like I did with my bodybuilding. It's the same thing, it's just different. Well, I compiled this journal, and I just, one day I woke up, when I woke up out of bed, I turn my TV on all the time to hear the news. There was a commercial that said, if you're a new author, here's a place that you can submit. And, I caught the number on the TV. I just remembered it in my head. And I just sent my little journal off to this publishing company in New York. Unbelievably, I got a publishing deal. And I have a book now. I'm published, I'm on Amazon, but it got even better than that. Then Hollywood got a hold of this thing. And now there's a movie being made from it that's currently I've already gone back for the first reading, and it sounds like it could be a big deal. Who knows? The point is, you don't know sometimes if things are bad or things are good. In my book, I talk about, to a degree, it's a choice, because I said in there that, we all go through adversity. Listen, I have my story. Everybody has their own story. I'm certainly not feeling sorry for myself. No way. But we all have a story. And in my book, I talk about you're faced with adversity throughout your life. And I made a choice. I said, I'm gonna either let this adversity, being paralyzed in that state, I'm either gonna let it destroy me, or I'm gonna let it define me, make me better. And that's what I did. I chose to do that, to make me better. That was my mindset. So, you know, I got a book deal now. I got a movie thing that's working. We're currently setting up and doing, I have a YouTube channel, TV channel, where I'm bringing people in, stroke people, anybody that we can. And the whole point is to get the message out. After this meeting today, I'm flying to Vegas. There's a director there that wants to do a documentary to expose what's going on in the industry, possibly. Why aren't these people getting better? Maybe there's something else going on. So, you know, you just never know. So my calling is to ultimately rewrite law. And you know how that's going to be. But rewrite law. Rewrite the way things are being done for stroke people. You know? That's where we're at today. That basically is, did I not say anything?
No, you got it all.
Okay. That's what I basically came here to tell you. Most of it's the truth. No, really, all of it's the truth. Is there any questions that you guys maybe have? Anything at all? No question is a bad question. It can be on fitness, it can be on whatever. You can ask me a personal question. I don't really care. Anything that I can answer for you?
I thought strokes mostly affected your left side. Or
No.
They can affect either side.
Both sides. And, while you bring that up, interestingly, strokes are on the rise among the age group between 25 and 44. On the rise. On the rise for women. Mainly women, I think the women, because they're more now in the workforce and they're in that stressful, that's playing a role. But it's on the rise with women. It's actually declining at my age group now. I'm 61. So it's declining in my age group, interestingly enough. This is not an old man's disease or an old person's disease. And think about this for just a second, okay? Because it all makes sense, like as far as what's going on. As much as 40% of our children are obese. Think about that, okay? So obesity, those kids that are obese when they're in their young ages, young adults, the majority of those kids are obese in their adult lives. Obesity, because you're heavy, obesity is a direct freeway and a link to high blood pressure. High blood pressure is the #1 reason you have strokes. We're, if we don't get our kids straightened out, we are looking for a hell of a big nightmare as this thing goes on. Truly. You know? That's a good question, by the way, out there. Any other questions that you guys might have? Did I do such a good job that I answered all your questions?
Great job.
Oh, no.
No, I have our families, relatives that have strokes,
Yeah.
and especially with my grandmother, that's what she had. She has to wait about 6 or 7 months after that.
Oh, yeah?
And but she never had the physical therapy or anything like that. She didn't want to do it.
Case in point.
She gave up.
And you know something, sir? That's another thing that I saw a lot of when we were doing these talks,
Yeah.
and people gave up. I saw it. You can see it in people's eyes. They gave up hope. And they died. I mean, so that's part of the reason. Besides the fact that she didn't do any kind of conditioning, giving up is probably even the worst thing.
Yeah.
When you give up, it's over. You know?
It's in our mindset.
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly.
Exactly right. You just let go. It's like, it's over.
Had a stroke, I'm done.
Yeah.
Shouldn't be that way.
Yeah. So that's kind of where it's at. Anybody else have any questions?
Well, Leo, I just ended up in the emergency ward not too long ago because my arm went down.
Uh-huh.
And so anyway, they were going to give me the same medicine.
TPA?
And I thought, well, if you didn't find a clot in me, don't give me that medicine because I don't want to die.
Yeah.
So anyway, I ended up going home, and then anyway, but right before that, I lost the vision, and I lost the vision in my left eye.
Uh-huh.
And so, but but after all the tests, it's 100% from high blood pressure that's spiking.
Yeah,
But if you test my blood pressure daily, it's not in the high range.
Yeah.
But it will go spike really, really high.
Yeah.
And it's doing damage, and it's also hit both eyes.
yeah,
So I want to do everything I can.
yeah.
And I'm like you, I asked the doctor, do I have any restrictions? Should I be driving? Should I be working in front of a computer?
Yeah.
I'm glad I do everything because I can.
Mhm.
And I can see that this like warped vision is coming back there.
Yeah.
But maybe the inflammation.
That's where it's at, I think. Here's the thing. If you have some inflammation, just
I
think
want to
of,
get hooked up to that IV. Where do I go?
yeah, this place in Porterville. I think what you're dealing with is inflammation. Then you combine that when you have stress, then that puts pressure on your eye. And I'm not a doctor, but I know how the body works. And I would say that based on what you're telling me, a diet change for you. Interestingly, I want to talk a little bit about a diet story because I think this pertains to you.
Okay.
So, all the years I did of training, I never got any hernia from lifting. Never. 25 years of training. I got a hernia from rehabbing myself from being paralyzed. I got a hernia right here. Well, then I wanted to get it fixed because it was getting annoying. And the doctor said, well, we got to do this cardiac clearance testing, blah, blah, blah. So I did that. And I had the angio. I wanted to be definitive about what what kind of shape I was in. Because the doctors, when it's happened to me, they said, no, you're in good shape. But when I had a chance to kind of like get a whole new set of numbers and have a new place to operate from, okay? And they did find out that they said, oh, your heart's enlarged. And they said, and there's a little blockage. But he said, nothing to be concerned about. But he said, if you want to be definitive, then do an angiogram. So they stick that needle in a vein right here. Because what that does, they shoot a dye up there and it takes a picture of your heart. Your heart has way more arteries in it than like the carotid artery. These are the big guys. And so they can't tell. He said, your heart could be enlarged because you're an athlete, most likely because you're an athlete, former athlete. But it could be something else. It could be blockage, which would make your heart have to pump harder to get the blood there. So I did that. Well, then it was definitive. At 60 years old, I was 35% blocked, which is nothing. I thought it was. Doctor said, no, we don't even start with medication and stenting until about 70%, 75, which I thought was shocking. But that's what he told me, So 35% overall blockage. And so I was in good shape. My heart wasn't large because I'm in athletics. That's not unusual. Your heart's an organ, but it's not a muscle. It's an organ, but it responds very much like a muscle. So that was normal. So what I did, I wanted to see, because I was going to come back in another year to get my yearly. So all I did, again, when I told you I changed my diet, I didn't change my diet all the way until I had my yearly. I changed my diet, but I really changed it to this paleo then after I got this information from the doctor. Because I said, okay, I want to see now, and in this next year, if I can reverse and change that 35% just by doing diet. Because my training doesn't change. I'm very consistent about my training. You only need about 3 hours a week to create an effect. And so all I did from 1 year to the next is I changed this paleo diet. I went back and did my yearly not too long ago in January. And the doctor said, amazingly, you have reversed your heart disease. I have changed that. There's more blood going to the now heart. So in your case, I think that a diet change, getting that, this paleo diet is very good. It's for anti-inflammation. I think that would go a long ways for you. I really do. One of the best ways for you to, and I wouldn't mind doing it because Kara helps me with that. If you wanted just to, I think I told you already, with your diet, if you fill out your diet for me.
I have not done that, but I've been
Well, you better hurry up.
I've been meaning to.
Don't procrastinate.
Okay.
If you fill out your diet or your eating, then I can analyze it for you, and I can give you a whole breakdown as to what percentage of what you're eating is protein, carbs, and fat. And we could probably identify some things. Or if you're taking in too much sodium, that would be another reason why your body would have pressure, because your body's holding water. Doctors, a lot of times, the people who have heart disease, they put them on a diuretic to get that water, because they hold water, and that causes pressure to the heart. So they give them diuretics to pull that water out. But you can do that with diet. You know? Anyway, so that's my deal.
One more question about the diet. When you say this, the paleo and meat being one of the three things, we all hear that, well, try to lay off red meat because that can be a heart problem contributor down the road.
Myth.
Is that a myth?
Myth. I'll tell you why. 33% of red meat has linoleic acid. That's good fat. Your meat is not, protein in meat is not the problem. Let me tell you something, it's not. Okay? When I want to reduce people's cholesterol, this is all counterintuitive, it goes against the grain. I put them on a high-fat diet, believe it or not. High protein. The carbohydrates is the problem. Oh, I'm eating healthy. I'm not saying that you can't eat like the carbs, like the vegetables. I think it's very good for you. But what happens is, over the years, we went on this low-fat diet craze. Well, we didn't get better. There's more people that are carrying more fat now than they ever were when they lowered their, because what they did, they had to replace it with something. They took the fat out of their diet and they replaced it with carbohydrates. Meat, fruits, vegetables, which are good for you, but if you take too much of that, your body can only assimilate so much of that. And then it has to do something with it. Otherwise you get what's known as high blood sugar. So your body, what happens, if you have too much sugar in your body, what your body will do is it'll process it and it'll start using it for immediate energy. You have a little bit of, in your brainstem, your body needs some sugar there. It'll fill up your liver storages like a big tank. Muscle, glycogen, these are all big tanks for storage in case your body needs that. Well, then the rest of it's just sitting around. Your body's smart. It picks the lesser of two evils. So what it does, think of when sugar is in your body, the response to that is your pancreas. It secretes insulin. Okay? Insulin is like a steam shovel. Think of it that way. And what the insulin does is it keeps pushing what's ever left over in your bloodstream. It keeps pushing it out into what's called a triglyceride. You've probably heard of those when you go to your doctor. That's the killer right there. That one's going to take you out over time. Triglyceride. It doesn't have anything to do with fat. But you're not going to hear that. Yeah, I'll be my skeptic, but I think I'm telling you the truth more than it's. There's too much money to be made in the way people they're processing food these days. I'm telling you, because that's not you. If you don't know how physiologically how these things work, they say I see food as nothing more than tools, and I study them and to see what their actions are. It's not. So to answer your question, Paul. Meat is not the problem. Eggs are not the problem. How about years ago they cut all these eggs out of our diet and they put them back in? Case point. It's the same thing. It's fat.
I always believed God wouldn't put them animals there if they weren't meant to be eaten.
But it's true, you know. So, yeah, it's But again, I'm not telling you to go out and do that, but I'm telling you that's how it works. Because most of your listen, I've done a lot of talks on purpose. I wrote a book called The Anabolic Diet. It's a high-fat diet. It's like the Atkins diet, but with a different twist on it. And I wrote this book, and I went out, because I worked this thing with a doctor out of Canada. This has been a lot of years ago. On purpose, I went and started talking to the support groups, service groups, where the doctors and the nutritionists were. If you want to know anything about how the body works, you go to a world-level bodybuilder, not a doctor. Doctors, less than 1% of their training is in nutrition. They don't know. So I went into this group and I started talking to these people, and they're looking at me like, fat? But it started hammering me. I could cite studies that had been done that had no self-interest. A lot of these studies that are done, they're based with self-interest groups. They have an interest for making that study look a certain way. That's how it really works. And I went in there, and at that time, this is 20 years ago, nutritionists, they had a general idea how nutrition works. They really didn't know. Doctors didn't know. So, and it's hard for the average consumer because you get all mixed up. Well, I thought I was eating healthy. Then all of a sudden your body's inflamed because you're eating too many carbohydrates or you're eating wheat products that are inflaming your system. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't have this gluten-free thing. That doesn't mean that you can't have it because your body can tolerate that. But some people, it's like smoking. Some people can smoke and live to be 100. And I've studied that too. Some people's bodies can't tolerate it. So that doesn't mean that just because, you know, that you can't eat these wheat, but that generally, wheat, processed foods, those are things that inflame the body. But if you have that, if you're lucky enough to have that kind of body that can tolerate that, you can do it. But you got, you know, you got to do more fact finding and know that before you start going on these you know, certain types of diets. So you guys like all charged up now, ready to go out there and kill them? Any other questions?
Whole cow?
And I can tell you this, listen, you know, your body is it's designed to move. If you put your body in whatever you call those things, those body, too long, your body will die because it's built to move. And what I'm telling you is that, you know, just be active on some level. Even if you just walked every day, that goes a long ways. The thing that I do in my place is we talk about the 3 components that are critical to make you really efficient. I'm about making you efficient as a human, as an individual. You have to do weight training, you have to do cardio and nutrition. Those are the 3 things that you need to do to be as efficient and maximize your results. If you leave one of those out, it's going to compromise overall result. But that doesn't mean that if you do one of those things and you do it consistently, that's better than nothing. The worst thing you could do is just not do anything. And I tell people, look, people say, well, do I have to be a gym rat if I come to you to get myself in this kind of, you know, what I want? No, 3 hours a week. It's knowing what to do. And most of us just don't. We guess and you know, we're shooting from the hip. And then we get frustrated when we don't feel like we're seeing the results that we want, and then we quit. It's a big vicious cycle. And then all of a sudden, right? Then all of a sudden you're like in worse shape than when you started. Because it's like, hell, it didn't work for me the first time. Anyway, I want to thank you guys for letting me come out.
One more.
Yes, sir.
On that, here you wrapped it up and you're talking about exercise and I'm sure you've had clients. What do you tell people? I mean, there's a few of us here at this place of employment that I guess we're fortunate. We sit around at a desk, we walk around the halls, and so when we get home and if you're inclined to want to work out, gee, I've got some energy, I'm going to go out and do something.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, a lot of jobs, they're physical and they're hard and it's hot, and so what do you advise for people that have that kind of job where you get home and you just want to recover?
Well, I understand that, but here's what's happening. From your day, again, think of this as like when I was training. Your day is working is like me training in the gym. You temporarily, the stuff that you do is a temporary irritant to your body. The type of work that you do, all of us are like that. So yeah, when you go home, you know, we talk about unwinding. There's a place for that. But I'm going to tell you something. It's a discipline, and I'm not going to tell you something you necessarily want to hear. But if you did nothing else, then when you get home, instead of just like saying, hey, leave me alone, I got to unwind, it's if you just did nothing more than take a 15 or 20-minute walk. That starts settling your body down to get the stress out of your body a little bit. Because, you know something, I don't know about you, but when I go home and I want to unwind, and when I just sit there, I'm still stressed out. Because now I'm thinking. You know what I mean? But if I go and do something, I'm just taking a walk, take the dog for a walk, changes. All of a sudden, we have what's called a sympathetic and a parasympathetic state within our body. Parasympathetic is when your body is in a place where it can recover. It's relaxed. It's when you're really relaxed. Not stressed out, sitting down, relaxed, but when you're fully unwound, then you're relaxing. In our sport and in training, what we do is you're only as good as your recovery. So we know that as athletes. After we train, we start taking amino acids and things that speed that recovery up. That, what I'm telling you, is kind of like taking that amino acid drink, that they call that post-recovery drink. So what you could do is just simply, when you get home, take that little walk. That's your little post-recovery thing. That'll speed up that recovery process. Then go unwind. See what I mean? I mean, if you did nothing else. Because some people don't like to exercise. I got that. But all I'm saying is that we're talking about your health here. Is it worth it to you? I don't know. Maybe it isn't. But that's a solution for that.
Okay.
Are we good?
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, have a good day.
Thank you.